Hello Heathlands at home, so it's Helen here and we are cooking again this week. As you can see, I'm in my own kitchen at home this week. That's because I'm not working from Heathlands at the moment, I'm working from home, and we're gonna cook a recipe this week for Burns Night. So those of you that do know, Burns Night is a Scottish festival evening to celebrate the Scottish poet Rabbie Burns. And for the occasion I have a little mouse mascot here. One of Burns's most famous poems is about a mouse. So what I'll do is, in your activity books, I'll put that poem about the mouse in there. So this week, if I come round, I'll show you what we're doing. This week, what we're making is Haggis, Neeps and Tatties. Haggis, Neeps and Tatties means haggis, which is a traditional Scottish meat dish. Neeps are swede or turnips, but usually swede, and tatties are your potatoes. So we're going to make this, traditionally it's served as it is, but you can put gravy with it as well. I'm going to add some butter, I've got my butter dish out here, and some milk to the mashed potatoes as well, and we'll add seasoning as we go along. So, I've just boiled a kettle. The first thing that we need to do is we need to prepare our haggis to go onto the boil. So I've got a pre-made haggis here. They're available in most large supermarkets. So if I come up to the camera, I can show you what it looks like. It's like a giant black pudding. There's lots of lovely herbs and spices in there. And you can get vegetarian versions, they're absolutely delicious. So you take it out of the packet, like this, and then you don't need to do anything else with it, other than what we're going to do is wrap it in tin foil. So I've got some tin foil here. Chuck that down underneath. And we're just going to wrap that up nice and neat, nice and tight. And then, as I say, I've already boiled a kettle of water. So what I'm going to do, I may need to boil another. That's pretty full. And we're just going to turn the heat on. So that's our haggis in a pan with boiling water. We're turning the heat on, we're going to cover it, and I'm going to put a timer on for 45 minutes. So that's how long our haggis takes. Always cook it to the instructions on the back of the packet. Mine says 45 minutes. I'm going to boil a little bit more water. I think it needs a bit more, but on the back here it says that you can boil your haggis, you can oven your haggis, or you can even microwave it. Now if you microwave it, you need to take the little metal clips off the end, but all the instructions will be on the back of the packet of haggis that you buy. So that is everything that we need to do for our haggis set away. So the next thing that we need to do is to prepare our neeps and our tatties. So the first thing we need to put on is our neeps, our swede, because that takes the longest to cook. So I'm going to start chopping and prepping that now. So, that's our turnip or our swede diced. Now, how much you need depends on how many people are eating. I've used over just a half a large Swede here. We eat quite a lot at home, so I had a half of one open already, and then I've chopped into another. But that's about enough for Mark and I and Eva. And as you can see, we've cubed it into roughly about centimetre squares. So what we're going to do is we're going to put some water on this. And we're going to put that on to boil as well. I'm going to put a little bit of salt in the water for seasoning. And we'll cover it. Now, the haggis has already got to a steady boil, so I've turned that down so it's just simmering. So the turnip's on now, so what we need to do next is to prepare our potatoes. So as I say, there's myself and Mark and Eva eating tonight. So I've got what would turn out to be about 4 medium potatoes, maybe 3 large potatoes. It might be a little bit too much mash, but it doesn't matter because we'll eat it up. So I'm going to get on preparing that, and I'll speed the video up again so you're not just watching me peel potatoes, and then we'll have a chat about what goes next. So, that is my potatoes, all nice and roughly chopped. Sorry, I'm looking at the screen rather than looking at the lens. Yeah, so this is my potatoes, all nice and roughly chopped. So what we're going to do now is the same as we've done with the Neeps, the Swede, is we're going to cover this with water and we're going to put it on to boil with some salt in it. And then what we need to do basically, guys, is wait for a little bit for everything to cook. So what I'll do is I'll get this on now, and then we're going to have a little break so you can get yourself a cup of tea while you wait for things to cook, and I'll come back and explain how to make everything up. By the way, if you can hear the tippy-tappy noise, that is Red, our Labrador, walking around. Because I'm cooking, she's hanging around me. She's hoping that she'd get some scraps, but there's nothing really appropriate for her today, so her luck's out. So yes, I will be back when the potatoes and the turnip is just about cooked, and I'll show you how to mash and make everything up. Okay, see you soon. Hi guys, so we're back and everything is about cooked right now. So what I've done is with my Neeps, my turnip or Swede, whichever you like to call it, and my potatoes, I've used a sharp knife just to check that the vegetables are cooked. So what I'm going to do first is mash my turnip or my Swede, my Neeps. So I'm going to drain it in the sink. And I've put it back in the pan. And what I want to do is put some salt and some pepper in, and I actually like to put some butter into my turnip. You could use olive oil as well, that would be lovely and tasty. So I'm just going to put a little knob of butter into my Neeps, put that back over there, and just clean my hand off. And all we're going to do is mash everything so that it looks nice and, well, not smooth like mashed potato, but you don't want any lumps. It's got a lovely rich, lovely yellowy golden colour, and it is a bit of hard work. It's not as easy as mashing potatoes, but if you've cooked it long enough, it shouldn't be too difficult. You can see I've got an extra board on top of my butcher's block here. That's so that I'm protecting my butcher's block from the heat of the pan. Now, you could technically use a stick blender to do this and you would get a very, very smooth kind of Neeps puree, but it's not very traditional. So I'm just doing it with a potato masher. And that's all there is to it. So I'm going to bring this up to the camera for you to show you. So that's our lovely Neeps all mashed up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put that back on the hob where it was and put the lid back on so that stays warm. And now what I'm going to do is get my milk out the fridge and I'm going to drain my potatoes. And back in the pan again. And just before I do this, I'm going to take my haggis carefully out of the pan. So I'm using a big pair of tongs here and I've got a dish ready. So I'm going to let that rest for a minute in there. So there's our haggis and there's our Neeps. So there's just our potatoes to do. And again, I want a little bit of butter. I'm just going to put a good knob of butter in there. I'm actually going to use that up and put my butter dish in the wash. And then I'm going to add a splash of milk. Now there's lots of different people or different ways that you can read about making mashed potatoes. Some say you put the butter in first, some say put the milk in first, some say even use an egg yolk, which makes it really rich. I just bung everything in the pan at once and mix it all together. So a bit of salt and a bit of pepper again, and I've got red down underneath me again, hoping that there's food. And yet again, we're just going to mash this all together. So I'll show you my mashed potato. It doesn't look particularly pretty in the pan like that, but if I can get it to focus. But it will be absolutely delicious because of that butter and milk and seasoning. So, as I said, I've boiled a kettle and I've put some gravy granules into a jug. Now, I use this jug all the time, so I know how much water to put in according to the instant gravy instructions. So always follow the instructions on the packet. So I'm going to make up a jug of gravy and give it a good stir. Now if you want, put that on there because it's hot, one of the ways to make instant gravy really, really tasty is to add a bit of Worcestershire sauce. So I've got Liam Perrings here. I'll show you that. Light's quite shiny on it. And Liam Perrings is not vegetarian. So if you want to go for a vegetarian haggis, Neeps and Tatties, what I would suggest is you go for a brand called Henderson's, or we call it Hendo's, and that doesn't have the anchovies in. But yeah, a splash of Liam Perrings into your instant gravy makes a wonderful difference. And as you can see, we use that a lot because it's right at the front of my herbs and spices cupboard. So give that a good stir. And I'll just grab a mat to put that on to protect my butcher's block. So then we've got our Tatties and our Neeps, and what I'm going to do now is open up my haggis and maybe push this forward while I serve a plate. So, I've got a plate here to serve our dinner on. A pair of scissors. And a serving spoon. Should have got those before. So, when you're opening your haggis, it will be hot. The tin foil will cool down very quickly, which is why I took it out before I did my potatoes. Get rid of that. And I'll bring this up to show you. At the start of our video, our haggis was very kind of knobbly and textured, and you can see now that it's cooked, in that skin it's expanded so it looks very smooth and shiny. So what we need to do now is very carefully cut into this, and you start at the end and it makes a little hiss as the air goes in. And as I say, this is hot, so if you need to get someone to help you, that's absolutely fine. There's a bit of excess water come out there, so I'm just going to drain that off, because you do not want watery haggis. So I'm just cutting through this, well, I say it's a skin. It used to be made with an animal intestine, or stomach I think it was, but nowadays modern haggis is made using a synthetic, kind of like a plastic covering, and this is very, very hot, so do be careful. But if I take that out and get rid of the skin, give my hands a clean, I can show you what the haggis looks like once it's out the skin. And all we do is we start to break it down. So it's very, very soft. You can slice it, or quite often people like to kind of crumble it. So that's how it looks. So what we're going to do is we're going to serve this up. So we're going to have some lovely mash. You can use the same spoon, don't worry. And my hands are clean, by the way. Always make sure to wash my hands before I cook. Oops, spilt a bit there. And last but not least, a lovely big piece of haggis. And as I say, here we like to have gravy with our haggis, neeps and tatties. So I'm going to pour some gravy over the top as well. And what I'll do, if I move things around so you can see everything. So there's our haggis, neeps and tatties. And I'll bring this to show you. Don't know if you can see because the light's quite strong. Haggis, neeps and tatties. So while it's not quite a recipe, it is a kind of cooking instruction for Burns Night. Burns Night is on Monday the 25th of January. We will be putting up some stuff on the Facebook page, and there will be things in your activity books, so we really hope you enjoy this one, and we'd love to see if you cook it too. Thanks guys, bye!